Agents, hey? So we're going to do a quick, I'm going to beg for a 3-word introduction. Name, what do you do? And we'll just quickly do that, and we'll go straight into the first question.
Okay. Andreas Hufenstuhl, a partner in PwC, and responsible for getting AI operationalized for our clients.
Perfect. Nancy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy, founder and CEO of Moonhub. We build AI agents for enterprises. Specifically, we build an AI recruiter.
An AI recruiter. Llion?
So my real Welsh name is Llion Jones. Llion Jones. But not many people can say that, so you can call me Llion, Llion, and I'll respond. I'm the CTO co-founder of Sakana AI. We do a lot of agent stuff, but more generally, we're just sort of a long-term speculative research organization. And my main claim to fame, I guess, is that I was involved in the development of the transformer architecture. Thank you.
Wonderful. Llion, that's your second main claim to fame. Your main one is that you're on this panel right here, right now, in 2025. Let's start with just a definition to help us understand what agents are and what they mean. Maybe can you chime in? A couple of minutes.
I mean, you did warn me that this question was coming, but I'm slightly annoyed that you started with one of the hardest questions, because I'm not entirely sure there is a definition of agents. Right? I think it means different things to different people, and it sort of means what you need it to mean when you want to sell your product. So what I'll do for you is I'll give you sort of a poor attempt at defining a model, so far as I understand it, and then I'll give you a much more sort of precise and technical definition, which I think is a very nice way of thinking about the current state of AI technology. So ChatGPT, as you normally use it, is not really an agent, right? You basically just talk to it, and it responds to you in natural text. What makes agents different is that they can take actions, basically, right? So they can do more than just talk to you. They can complete tasks. And this is still done with a chat interface. Sometimes in the background you don't see it. But this requires you to ask the language model to take several steps to do what it needs to do, and sometimes it needs to use tools in order to get you there. So, I mean, that's literally what it means, agentic. It's you have agency in the world, right? You're able to actually move things around.
So I'm going to come to your technical definition in a second. What I'd love to do is understand how, Nancy, you explain this to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I, like Llion, I come from an academic background, and before this I was at Stanford's AI lab, where I worked on some of the foundational research in AI agents at the time, and then later spun out and decided to start the company. And in the early days, I thought of my role as being a researcher in the space. And nowadays, I feel like I'm basically a commercial evangelist, because you go around and you ask most of your customers, what do they think an AI agent does for them? And you get 1,000 different answers. And I would say the simplest way to think about what an AI agent is, from a business perspective, is I tell people it's a little bit like having a digital coworker or a digital employee. And I think all of us, you can think about your jobs, and by a show of hands, most of you probably don't like a couple of aspects of your job. And that's where I think the opportunity for AI agents really will become, is not only better, faster, cheaper, which is a lot of what you hear about, but the ability to help individuals become more creative in their day-to-day workflows, and for businesses to actually potentially produce new product lines, more efficiency, and increase bottom line impact as well.
But you've set me up beautifully. So Andreas, if you had an agent that could do some part of your job, so you could spend time doing the more fun part, what would you want your agent to do?
Get my PowerPoint presentations faster done. I think that would be perfect. It's still a task where we have a lot of manual work to execute, but I think repeatable tasks that we do several times a day, and that get completely automated and create final results that are acceptable, so that I don't need to do in the way that we are doing today, chatting, interacting, improving, getting better. And so the correlation of the results which we're actually getting is so annoying. So even if we're using Gen AI, it's not on the level that we want to be when we are talking about agents.
You sent me one of your PowerPoints, and it was pretty good. So I think that's a tough bar for an agent to come in and do, Llion. That'll be something for you to do next in the coming quarter. One of the things that I'm curious about is how we build these agent systems so that they become reliable, right? We've all used LLMs. You ask it the same question 2 different times, even the recent ones, and they come up with slightly different, answers. So when you start to string these things together, it just feels to me like that variability will magnify. So how do you build agents that are reliable?
So you're asking the researcher, so you're going to get a technical answer.
Yes, go technical.
So let me first start by talking about an agent that we built at Sakana AI. It was called the AI Scientist. And this was able to go from being fed an idea to then iterating on the idea, choosing the idea, writing the code, running the code, fixing the code, collecting the results, and then writing that into a paper, and then even reading back its own paper and giving it like an assessment of how good it is, like how likely it is to be accepted into a conference.
Right.
Now, the problem with agents, of course, is that this is a step by step by step by step, and each one of these steps has a certain probability of completing. And the very first time we tried to build this system, it didn't work. Right? We just couldn't get any reliable results out of it at all. And we basically shelved the idea for, I would say, not even 2 months. And then the next versions of the LLMs came out, like a new version of ChatGPT, a new version of Claude from Anthropic. And we plugged it back in, and we're like, oh, it's kind of feasible now. Okay? So what you need is a system that's good enough so that each one of these steps has a high enough probability of working so the entire chain works. Now, what people don't realize about this is because you're multiplying together these probabilities, you don't see a linear progress, right? You see quite a flat thing that doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work. But there's a certain threshold of probabilities, and it suddenly just shoots up, and then they become super powerful, right?
You can say the E word at that point.
Yeah, exponential, or they also say emergent, right? There'll be an emergent property of just this little bit more reliability in each step suddenly means the entire system is reliable.
Yeah.
And we'll see this inflection point. I think it'll happen in 2025. So that's what we need to get them working. Just a little bit more of a linear improvement at each step, and you'll see these things becoming very robust.
So Nancy, when you're building your agents, you're selling the agents, can you, from the product perspective, know up front whether you're going to be on this emergent exponential of improvement and reliability, or whether, is it a game of trial and error?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think right now, for companies thinking about adopting AI, the biggest questions are around trust, reliability, and bias. And I think for all 3 of these, many people think about it as how do I make the AI as trustworthy as a person, as unbiased as a person. And I would actually argue, I think AI can actually be even less biased than a person and even more trustworthy as a person. And I'll give you a very concrete example of this, right? So we work with many of our customers to help hire and scale out their teams with AI. So we essentially develop these AI recruiters, and they go out and help people, companies when they're looking for, let's say we have a Fortune 500 customer, they need to hire 1,000 salespeople. We identify who the best candidates are and engage those people on behalf of the customer. Well, it turns out, if you are a recruiter trying to hire great salespeople for your company, you're fundamentally limited by human bandwidth, which means you go and maybe reach out to 100 people that are the most obvious fits. You go to your competitors and you try to hire their AEs. But the truth is there are probably 10,000 people out there who are probably very qualified for that opportunity, but you never get to those people because you're limited by how much bandwidth you have as a person. And I think that's where AI agents, fundamentally, it's not just about more efficient and better bottom line, but I think we can actually have superhuman experiences that actually enable companies and organizations to be even more successful. And I think that is where we should be thinking about, when we think about AI agents, it's like, how do we make them even more trustworthy, even less biased than people, not less?
It's quite a challenge, though, right? To sell into those ideas. They sound great, and everybody wants it. But we live in a world where human performance has been, the gold standard. So thinking about your clients, if they were hearing this type of pitch or this type of explanation, what would they be skeptical about?
I think the biggest problem is still that on one side, the humans need to be convinced, so there must be a trusty environment, so that's what they need to learn and try. On the other side, we are still sticking in existing grown organizations, so these agents have to become part of the normal day-to-day processing in the IT department, so they must be somehow integrated in the actual process landscape. And that's also the other area, so there's risk and regulations that needs to be considered, there's IT standards that needs to be considered. Right. And so on this side, we always think there's a lot of barriers so far. Even if the technology is now working, we are starting to convince people that they are applying, they're entering just the next door where we feel there's a next bench of people that are struggling with the new ideas. And the idea of increasing automation by packaging more and getting better results, I think is the right one, because that's creating efficiency and getting us to the next level, away from manual prompting into automation. But
I love what you've said there, and I love this notion of auditing and transparency, that it's a kind of practical reality for companies. So we're going to come back to that. I wanted just to cast our minds out a little bit further out. So Mark Benioff, who is the boss of Salesforce, said, software coding is working so well through AI systems and AI agents, we might not even hire any new engineers this year. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA has said, look, we're going to have hundreds of agents, each of us, using them throughout our life. I've gone even further, because Jensen said that. I thought, I've got to go further. And I said, we'll each be supported by thousands or maybe millions of agents, and we'll need an agent to manage our sub-agents. What does the future actually look like when you look at these curves and you think about how adaptable they become? Is it a constellation of task-specific agents that we will all call upon? Is it going to be numbered in that constellation scale? Llion, we'll go to you first. Just take us out 3 to 5 years.
Even 3 to 5 years in AI is so difficult to predict, because everything is changing so quickly.
Okay. 2 years, a year. So, but some sense, where do we get to?
I think it will start out as a constellation, right? It's actually where the logo of my company comes from. It's like a swarm of fish sort of working together. But I think by definition, AGI just needs to be one thing, right? Because by definition, it can do everything. So I think you'll start off with the constellation of small intelligences working together, and then they might come together and be this one big entity.
Nancy, what do you think about this? Do you think that your Moonhub agent will expand to handle all the other business functions, or do you imagine there'll be just a kind of a constellation of competing systems, and that number will grow and grow over time? And the rules of the panel are you can disagree with other panelists.
I'll first disagree with, I'll say Mark is one of my investors, and I can guarantee you he's going to hire software engineers for the next couple of years. So a couple thoughts. One, I think we're in the first inning of AI agents. Without going into too much detail about our company's roadmap, I think AI recruiters are just the start, right? You can think about every business function you have inside your company, and I can guarantee you in 2025, someone is going to try to build an AI agent to do that thing. Now, what the evolution of this looks like within the AI context is, 10 years ago, when we were doing research back then, we were, most of the AI was just single tasks, like, is this a cat, is this a dog, what is my Netflix recommendation? We've gone from tasks, now we're in processes, so now you see AI has capabilities for reasoning, which is what a lot of the, O1, O2, et cetera, have pushed for, and that reasoning enables us to do workflows. And then I think from workflows, we're gonna get to even more elaborate computation, which will allow us to essentially have digital employees. We're not quite there yet, frankly, but I think I would actually disagree a little bit on the AGI context in that I do think when I sort of think about how many agents there will be in the world, I think about how many discrete processes or workflows that the AI can actually do. Whether or not it'll be 10 agents or 1 agent, I don't think matters as much as like what the capabilities are. But fundamentally, I think there are a lot of pieces of data out there that are very siloed inside enterprises. And if you can access that data, I think that is a fundamental limitation to building really good AI agents at scale for many of these applications.
So, Andreas, a head-spinning number of different agents or one agent to rule them all?
I'm with A, so I'm disagreeing here because there are many reasons why we will get a bunch of agents. Because on one side, the different source systems where we are actually storing data, it's complicated to get them available. So we will have in the workflows a task just to get the data that we need and the right one and clean them before we are using them. And on the other side, we are even from regulation required to keep a human in the process. So even if it's a workflow that we are passing, there must be a human in the loop or above the loop, but there must be a human interaction. And still, if it's a black box, so I don't think that we will build the next big black box which is solving all the problems. We have to be part of the decision-making process within the system. So that's why there will be an orchestration of agents with the central register, and there will be for sure agents that we can use in several workflows. But there must be a way how we are orchestrating these agents within entities and across the enterprises.
I really want to let you come back onto that point, but I saw Llion, you were shaking or nodding your head at one point, and so I wanted to get that in.
Yes, thank you. I would like to clarify. I'd like to say that I actually agree with everything you said. I think it's a disagreement in timeline, right? So I'm just thinking like ultimately what's going to happen is it's going to be a unified intelligence. But right now, what you described is what we require.
Yeah.
There's also something that I wanted to say in response to what Nancy said, that she said something like, oh, people are definitely going to try and build these systems this year. And I always feel like it's my job in these sort of panels to tell people to calm down a little bit, because we're still researching it, right? People tried to make agents a thing in 2024, and they weren't ready. And I knew they weren't ready, but of course, there's a gold rush, and everyone wants to push something to market as quickly as possible, right? So I would urge a little bit of skepticism, right? Probably the company that brings the first version of something to market are probably too early, and it probably won't work right, but then maybe the next company will be.
Fantastic. We're precious short of time, and I did want to come back to you, Andreas, because you have been rolling out agents across European clients for a while. What are the key lessons about practically 2025 that people need to think about?
Yeah, first, I think what we hear is agents are working. So there are technical ways that we can establish completely decision-making processes which are a combination of executing something, proving something, getting results in the right way, and that's the next level of automation, getting away from prompting each and every question in GPT, which is very positive because that's the next level of increasing efficiency in our organizations. The second is, if we are now in the stage where we have not this swarm of one fish, we still have to orchestrate a hell of agents. So we have to establish environments and repositories where we can apply this. So there must be somewhere in our enterprises environments where these agents can live. So we have to establish an orchestration layer where we can orchestrate agents along the environments, and departments need to be capable to build their own agents. What we always see is that the human just accept if they can prove and that they can train and if they can improve an agent. So it's really within the different departments that will create different versions of agents that they later apply to organizations. And that's also maybe the last point, that's increasing the acceptance by the user, and it's increasing the acceptance by the auditor. So we have regulations like the EU AI Act to consider, and there's still a need that it's still audit ready. And if a human can understand what the agents, how it came to the conclusion, then also the auditor can understand how the agent came to the conclusion that that's the right decision.
I love that observation, the kind of deep practicality, and also this sense, because we have heard so much the last 10 years that AI is a black box, and it's hard to figure out what's going on, and maybe we have a moment now where audit trails, which funnily enough, are important even outside of Germany. 006, 007, and 008, you've been absolutely brilliant on the agent panel. We have to move on to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Lovely to see you. See you guys at dinner, yeah.